India before independence was a landscape of competing royal houses, but the Asaf Jahi dynasty of Hyderabad stood in a category of its own. This chart compares personal wealth to the entire U.S. economy. By 1937, Mir Osman Ali Khan's fortune was so vast that it equaled roughly 2% of the total American GDP. The foundation of this wealth was the Golconda mines. For centuries, this region was the primary global source of diamonds and gold, feeding a treasury that few nations could match. He possessed every resource a monarch could desire, but his life was defined by a specific physical paradox that baffled his contemporaries. In his collection sat the Jacob diamond, a 185-carat gem, twice the size of the Koh-i-Noor. It was one of the most valuable and flawless objects on the planet. The Nizam didn't keep it in a vault. He wrapped the stone in a piece of scrap newspaper and used it as a paperweight on his desk, where it sat among ink stains and dust for years. To the Nizam, the diamond's market value didn't change its utility. His relationship with his wealth operated on a logic that ignored the conventions of status. Maintaining the Nizam's public persona required an operation that dwarfed most small cities. His primary estate was run by 14,000 staff members. The workforce was split into highly specialized roles. 38 servants were employed exclusively to clean chandeliers, while 15 more were kept on the payroll strictly to crack walnuts for his kitchen. He used this workforce and his treasury to reshake the region. He founded Osmania University and provided the massive grants that allowed institutions like Banaras Hindu University and Aligarh Muslim University to expand. His reach was global. When Queen Elizabeth II was married, the Nizam's gift was a custom necklace embedded with 300 diamonds. In the press and across international diplomatic circles, the Nizam functioned as the archetype of the donor king, a figure whose resources seemed as vast as they were visible. But his private quarters told a different story. The man who funded universities slept on a simple mat on the floor of a room thick with cobwebs. He frequently refused to spend money on basic cleaning or repairs. He owned 8,000 dinner sets made of solid gold and silver, yet his personal meals were served on a single cheap tin plate. He was known to wait for his guests to finish smoking, then collect the discarded half-burned cigarette butts to smoke himself later. His wardrobe was just as neglected. He wore the same knitted cap for 35 years, refusing to replace it even as it grew stained and unwashed. Below his feet, in the palace cellars, sat hundreds of millions of pounds in gold bars and cash. But above ground, he lived in a self-imposed poverty, scavenging for tobacco and wearing rags. His wealth had become a psychological weight. He could hoard it and give it away to causes, but he seemed physically unable to spend it on his own comfort. After Indian independence, the Nizam's political autonomy vanished. Forced to integrate Hyderabad into the new nation, he exchanged sovereign power for a government allowance. This shift exposed the danger of his hoarding. Because he kept vast sums of physical cash in damp, neglected basements, rats chewed through millions of rupees, turning a fortune into literal bedding. By his death in 1967, his household had fractured. He left behind over 100 descendants, children, grandchildren, and wives, each expecting a portion of the estate. The end of the Nizam's life didn't simplify the inheritance. He left behind a complex tangle of competing claims that dragged on for decades. The responsibility fell to his grandson, Mukarram Jah. He inherited palaces and gold, but also the massive legal bills of a collapsing empire. The financial death blow came in 1971. The Indian government abolished the privy purse system, cutting off the guaranteed cash flow. What remained was consumed by mismanagement and hundreds of lawsuits from relatives. The fortune that once rivaled the GDP of nations began to evaporate. In 2023, the last Nizam died in Turkey. He had lost an estate once valued at 4,000 crore rupees, living his final years in a small apartment, thousands of miles from the palaces of his youth. Mir Osman Ali Khan spent his life accumulating more wealth than he could ever use, but his inability to manage it or let it go ensured his family would eventually have nothing. He proved that a hoarded fortune isn't an asset, it's a liability.